guys, this is the first chapter of Factfulness, GapInstinct. The main ideas of this chapter are, first of all, it will explain what is GapInstinct, and secondly, it will explain why we have GapInstinct, and finally, it will give us a suggestion how to control our GapInstinct. So let's begin with the GapInstinct. As you can see at this picture, each bubble represents a country, and the size of the bubble represents the population of this country. And in the right part of the chart, it means that in this country, women have fewer children, and on the left of the chart, it means that in this country, women have more children on average. And on the top of the chart, it means that in this country, the children's surviving rate is higher than the bottom one. So according to this picture, the world can be divided into two groups, the developing countries and the developed countries. And it seems that there's a huge gap between the developing and developed countries. Is that right? Of course not. The world today is not like this because this data is from 1965. Nowadays, here's the picture from 2017. You can see from this picture that the boss of the developing countries is all almost empty, and most countries are in the developed in the position of the developed countries. And on average, most countries have fewer children than before, and their survival rates have greatly increased. And also, the gap between the developing and the developed countries is not that huge as we imagine. So this is called GapInstinct. It's a binary thinking that we tend to divide things into two paths, and these two paths may have great gap between them, but the reality is not that as we imagine. And so we tend to divide things into two paths. For example, the temperature of the water can be divided into ice cold and steam hot, and there's a great huge between these two paths. However, actually, the temperature of the water can be varied from ice cold and steam hot, and there can be freezing, tepid, and scalding water. So the author suggested that instead of dividing the world into two parts, the rich and the poor, actually we may divide them into four parts. level 1 from level 1 to level 4. So the level 1 people lives in extreme poverty. They have to go to a far place to fetch water, and they have no shoes. They have to connect wood for fire, for cooking, and their food may be some porridge. However, when the level improves to level 2, they may have a bicycle to fetch water, and they may have a gas stove, and their food is improved. And in the level 3, they may have cold water inside their house. They don't need to fetch water from a far place. And they can buy a motorcycle. In the level 4, there may be some hot and cold water inside their house, and they can buy a car, um, and so on. So why the gap instinct exists? The first reason is that we tend to make comparisons of averages. So here's look at this picture. The picture shows the average math scores of men and women. It seems that men always have a higher math scores than women, and there's a huge gap between them. On the right side, it shows the average income between the United States and Mexico. It seems that people from United States have higher income than Mexico, and there's a great gap between them. But is that true? We can make a change in the vertical axis, so you can see that there's no huge gap between them. They are quite similar. It's true that it seems true that men get higher math scores than women, but the difference is not as huge as we imagine. And so does the average income between people from US and Mexico. However, the averages may be misleading because the simplification can ignore some information. For example, if we see all the individual data, we can see that men does not always do better than women. As you can see that women, some women does do better than men, and some people from Mexico lives a better life, have a higher average income, has a higher income than people from US. The second reason is that we tend to make comparisons of extremes. For example, here we can see that the richest 10% of people from Brazil have 50% of the total income, and this trend has been decreased over the years. So we may imagine that the poorest, there's a huge difference between the poorest and the richest people. However, the statistics show that few people are living in extreme poverty. Actually, most people are having a middle. Most people are in the middle between the poorest and the richest. The third reason is that most of us are not living in the extreme poverty. Most of us may be in level 3 or above. So our first-hand experience is from the level 3 or level 4 standards. And when we look down to level 2 or level 1, we may have some wrong view. For example, when you look down when you look down, it can be hard to tell which building is taller, right? So it's hard for us to imagine how the people from level 1 experienced. And so the second-hand experience is filtered by metal media, so we don't know how the reality is. So the author gives some suggestions on how to control the instinct, the gap instinct. The most important thing is to look for the majority. So beware comparisons of averages. If you could check the spreads, you will probably find they overlap. There's not huge gap between the richest and the poorest. And secondly, beware comparisons of extremes. We have to know that there are some at the top and some at the bottom. The difference is sometimes extremely unfair, but even then, the majority is usually somewhere in between, right where the gap is supposed to be. And the third is that please remember, looking down from above distorts the view. Everything else looks equally short, but it's not. So here's what I want to share with you today. Thank you.